think I would like to have conversation about. One, I think I would like to reflect to you what I am understanding from you, and then I'd like to hear what is Weola like here to communicate to us, like, you know, specifically the entity of Weola. For me, what I'm receiving is the message that we all are one, you know, just like one consciousness, one entity, that me and my inner being are one, that me and God consciousness are one, that me and all around me are one entity, and that when we are in that infinity sign that Weola uses, that eternal dance, the closed position, open position, that when we are in that center closed position, we have the general perspective of oneness, and that when we are on the edge of the infinity symbol, or in the open position, that we are in a more focused, like narrowly focused perspective, and we're in our sort of we're in the question, and also in sort of our individual perspective, and that all perspectives are valuable, none more valuable than the other, that the question is just as valuable as the answer, and we want to find balance in the question, in the infinite, eternal question-answer dance. That's what I'm receiving as the...
Well, that might have been one of the most succinct ways of describing the core of what's coming through based off of the brilliant questions over the whole last year. That movement, that eternal movement, that oneness that we always talk about is really that perspective of oneness that you talk about does not really have to feel general to you too. In other words, this God perspective, this divine perspective, this we all are one perspective, this everything that is this perspective, this soul perspective, this inner being, inner self perspective, you can call it whichever way you want. But that wider perspective can be predominantly in every specific situation through your focus too. This is what we talked about to friend before. You can get to the place of wider perspective being predominantly in your balance of question-answer dance, and then applied everywhere. And this is what living beyond the emotions means. This is what living beyond your body, your mind, and your emotions means. That you get to see that perspective and apply it not only in that which you called closed position in a center, but you apply it in every step of the way, in all specific questions while you're having it. And then not only move from the place of answer to the place of question, but having question-answer dance on the way to the question, and having a question-answer dance back to the answer, and having a question-answer dance back to the question, and having the question-answer dance back to the answer, because that movement is happening at all times. Happening at all times at such speed, and it can be so comfortable and steady for you that you can then really ride the wave of that which is God perspective applied to your physicality.
Okay, so as I'm hearing that and keeping this like analogy of a dance, an eternal dance in mind, to me it almost sounds like I can be the perspective of the woman in the dance. I can be the perspective of the man in the dance. I can be the perspective almost as like the Holy Trinity, like when we're the oneness that is flowing through the man and the woman. And also I can take the perspective as sort of the observer of the entire scene.
What we want to bring to your attention is that it is not that you can, you are all of those perspectives. You are all of those perspectives of all times. You are this wider God, and you are this narrower pointed focuser that you are in this physical iteration. That which you call male, female, or integrated into that which is male, female, and then integration of that into that which you call Trinity. You can use any analogy that suits you from your understanding, but we want to bring to your attention is that it's not a question that you can. We want to bring to your attention that that's happening at all times. You can then either recognize it and then really be the one opening the door to really apply it to, or you can recognize it as random experiences and saying, I can do this, or I can do this, or I can do this. Well, you're doing it at all times. You're doing it all. You're doing gravity, you're doing law of attraction, you're doing the wider perspective, you're doing narrow perspective, you're doing male, you're doing female, you're doing wider, you're doing narrow, you zoom out, you zoom in. It is all you at all times. You from the place of question contributing to the wider one perspective, and you from that place really stretching yourself of inclusiveness about everything and anything you give your attention to, what is comfortable, and then a little more what is comfortable, and then a little more, and what is comfortable, and then a little more, consistently, eternally, perpetually at all times.
Okay, so I am receiving, and I am in agreement. That resonates with me, that we are all of those things. We all are all of those things simultaneously. No, I do, in my own experience anyway, I don't operate, I don't live my life like from the perspective, like from the experience of oneness in all moments of my life. Even though I recognize that I am, like in my head, I recognize that I am oneness. There's certainly, you know, in the moments of my life, I feel like I have perspective as an individual, knowing that I'm more than all of that. And I think that there's purpose and value to having that finer focus as me.
We want to bring to your attention that it's not about me focused and then one unfocused, and then unfocused now applied to focus means that unfocus is predominant. What we're trying to say is that oftentimes, because of the stimulation of environment that you're in, you tend sometimes to be more in a place of focus. And then when you balance it out, we're not saying go to the place of one and just operate from one, because that's not what we're talking. We're talking about you getting to the place of recognizing that there is self, or that focused, really focused question asker in this physical iteration, and then there is this one, but it's not one versus another. It's not even one and another working together. It is blended into oneself. So once you see that you're not only self, once you recognize that there is one, but then not trying to really become only one, because that is when you're non-physical fully, never really for a long period of time, but realizing that yourself, and then you're also one, and then finding the balance about experiencing oneself predominantly. That is what we've been talking about, and you so beautifully instigated out of us in this new way today.
Okay, you said experiencing myself as one. Is that what you said? To experience?
In other words, you can get to the place of unfocus and be operating from the perspective of one. That is what your meditation does. That is what your appreciation gets you to. That is what some sport activity gets you. That is what you being in a place of almost no thought gets you to the place of that wider perspective, where you really start seeing and receiving wider picture. And then there is you asking the questions through your physical senses, collecting data, collecting the questions, generating them. Now, it's not a matter of how much time you're in self or how much time you're in one. It is really for you to see that you're always one self, but predominantly you're experiencing being from that integrated place and not from the place of this or that.
I receive that. I understand that. Now, on a more practical matter, I think this is stimulated from the first questioner. So I do the work. I meditate daily for years, and I do appreciation on purpose, deliberate appreciation, and still, as I should, have moments of unwanted or moments of contrast, with my partner, with my son. And, and I understand that there's value in that. And I don't really enjoy arguing with someone or debating with someone or, the contrast. But I understand that I can enjoy it more when I, remind myself that it all has value, it all has purpose. It's going to, we're having a moment of clarity, we're bringing something to finer focus and remembering that expansion is inevitable from this moment. But something that was coming to mind is it seems almost as if I take this analogy of the dance, this infinite question-answer dance, and in my mind I have these partners dancing together. In the analogy of dance or in sport, there is the zone, that the zone where you're in the zone and you're feeling amazing and everything is like clicking and working so well, and you get in that zone in relationship where everything is flowing, the conversation is flowing, the energy is flowing. And then sometimes, it doesn't feel like that. Even in the dance, it's like when I'm learning something new and I got it. Oh no, I don't got it. And it is a different experience, and it all has value. And the more and more I practice the I don't got it part, knowing that me continually practicing this I don't got it part is going to lead to more I got it. But there's always like room for me to improve and get better, like in dance and in sport and in many things where we master it. It seems to me that it's about time. It's about like practice. And so taking this analogy and sort of extrapolating to sort of like how we deal with contrast when we're in the how we can deal with contrast, even, I don't want to say better, but maybe there's some element of practice, practicing what to do in this situation, practicing what to do in that situation, so the next time it comes around, I'm better at it, I navigate it better, I move through it better, like a dancer, getting better at my craft.
Becoming part of you. In other words, what you're looking for is, we got very clearly from you that you see the value of those varieties, and you see the value even in some of those conversations that are not as comfortable, and those negative emotions that are nobody's favorite, and we understand that. But what we want to bring to your attention is that we also get that that the end goal is not really for you to get to the place where everything feels steady and then there is no questions, because then it's time for you to have a fresh perspective. So for as long as you have questions in this iteration, there will always be something to catch your attention, not necessarily in that exaggerated way, because that which you call contrast or negative emotion does not have to be a predominant experience. It does not even have to be occasional experience for you. And this is what we started talking about recently when it comes to living beyond the emotions. Because as you identify yourself with the negative emotion, equally as you identify yourself with the positive emotion, because as you identify the ease and love and appreciation and enthusiasm and celebration and all of those wonderful experiences, sometimes if you identify yourself so much so with that, you try to hold on to it like that is really winning the lottery kind of experience, and then trying to have only those kind of experiences. And what we want to say is that even in those things you want to choose to feel them, to experience them, but not for you to become them. In other words, not for you to stay there for so long, because then you usually start holding on, and then you are not the one opening the door for new questions to come through, and then you get yourself surprised in that argument, or as the friend was saying, envy or jealousy, or not such a positive experience or positive emotions. But when you get to the place of steady or satisfying or loving or really full of love and energy and enthusiasm and thrill and ecstasy and bliss and satisfaction, You want to find when is the soft spot, so you be the one ahead of looking for trouble. Because when you get to be the one opening the door and looking for trouble, then your questions, then your arguments, then your envies and jealousies and negative emotions are never really as pronounced and never really get you to experience them like you're identifying yourself with them. You're rather just going through them for the value part, not necessarily negative emotion part of that. And that means that you're the one opening the door, looking for trouble. I'm feeling so steady right now. I'm feeling so blissful and loving. And I understand that this is the best time for me now, not to rush, but to open myself to focus. Because I know I can always find the tools to get back to steady. But I also know that now I can be the one opening the door. In other words, not holding on to steady and looking to see what is the crisis for me to avert, but me to look where is the crisis, me to look where is the trouble, because I feel so steady and empowered now to generate the new question. You getting ahead of it this way will never get yourself to experience the question more than on curiosity level, on a level of formulating the question, of formulating these soft nuances, observing variety from the place of really seeing the value even before the question is there. And therefore understanding that when you get there, sometimes you'll experience negative emotion. And when you get to the experience of positive feelings, you will stay there sometimes longer, sometimes not so long. But you always have the tool to change the focus of your flashlight of where your attention is at all times. And so there is that value, and it's not time for you to dig out that value once you're in a place of argument or any kind of negative emotion, but recognizing the value, moving to steady. But when you are steady, that is the time to open the door. That is the time for you to be the one to tip the point from the place of steady to the place of question. We know that steady and love and appreciation and satisfaction feels so good. We understand that that feeling is so satisfying to you, but it's nothing compared to you taking that and applying it and opening the door and having that into your experience of formulation of the question. There is nothing more satisfying in seeing that which is value. This is the only time, we have not said it before, this is the only time where you can see the value of that question at that moment of formulating the question and not having to wait for more. Only when you're beyond the emotions you can do that, because you're the one invited that question to begin with, and therefore nothing throws you off but your eyes on the prize to see the clarity of what the question is, to really at that moment see the value of it and move on to more satisfying experiences.
I understood. I received that. I received that and I resonate with that. And what's coming to me, someone asked about the start. How did it all start? And what's coming to me is why that is such a challenging question is that there's no endedness and there's no beginningness. There's just always was and always is and always will be.
There is always movement at all times. This movement, this curiosity, this satisfaction, this discovery, this joyful journey, this consistent pulsating movement embodied in every particle of everything that exists, moving at the pace that you choose, moving at the pace of your steady, moving at the pace of such brilliance of the questions that are coming through, because that movement is so much so intertwined with everything that you're observing now and you've observed before, and you will continue to observe, so much so that you have access to all of it. Your divine perspective, your perspective of self, giving you this unique print on your own perspective of oneself, or we can say of everything self, this everything self kind of experience. In other words, everything that exists from the perspective of self, bringing more to the one, more to the one, more to the one, for you to then have even more satisfying discoveries along the way. This never-endedness, perpetuality, eternity is really there for you to experience more joy, and at all times serves for your brilliant experiences to bring you more of that journey and more of that journey and more of that journey of satisfaction, in appreciation of these brilliant, we can say epic conversations today. For now.